Om Tat Sat Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Yatas Sarvani Bhutani Pratibhanti Stitani Cha Yatrai Avo Apashamam Yanti Tasmai Satyatmane Namaha. Salutations to that reality in which all elements and all inanimate and animate beings shine as if they have an independent existence, and in which they exist for a time and into which they merge. Jnata jnanam tatha neyam drishta darshana drishyabhu karta hetu kriya yasmat tasmai jnanat atmane namaha. Salutations to that consciousness which is the source of the distinct threefold knower, knowledge and known, seer, seen and sight, doer, doing and deed. Spuranti sikara yasmat anandasya ambare avanav sarvesam jivanam tasmai brahmanandatmane namaha. Salutations to that bliss absolute, ocean of bliss, which is the life of all beings, whose happiness and unfoldment are derived from the spray that comes from that ocean of bliss. Sri Rajarajeshwari Tripura Sundari Kulakundali Mahamaya ki jai. Sri Shuddha Brahma Parat Pararamachandra Mahaprabhu ki jai. Pavana Sutta Hanuman ki jai. Mahamuni Vasishtha Mahavatar Mahabhag ki jai. Sri Jagat Guru Krishna Paramatma ki jai. Sri Shankar Bhagavat Pad ki jai. Sarvatra Acharya Gano ki jai. So, a couple of things. The two girls who are leading the chanting of the 15th chapter today, it's very nice, beautiful. Some minor corrections may be necessary in the chanting. So, we'll work it out. Continue chanting, but not very important, but for me I think it's better you do it right. The second thing before we begin is either by slip of tongue or by the dullness of my intellect. 2 days ago, committed an almost unforgivable error of giving the wrong name of the great Acharya of Sringeri. Somewhere by mistake, or as I said, by the dullness of my stupid brain, I said Chandrashekara Saraswati. No. We were referring to Chandrashekara Bharati, a good soul who is always watching from far, reported it to me and I checked up and I said, yes, that's right, it was Chandrashekara Bharati, not Chandrashekara Saraswati. Just for your information, I am correcting my mistake myself. So we start again today's session. So who was the Acharya of Sringeri that I referred to? Actually, Chandrashekara Bharati, who most of the time preferred to stay alone and quiet and not come out into the crowds, for which people thought he was out. There's an interesting dialogue. Somebody went to him and said, There are some people who are very seriously interested in spiritual matters. He said, me, I am. But I am trying hard to study the Shankara Bhashya of the Brahma Sutras. And I'm not succeeding, so I feel bad, low down. So the Acharya smiled and told him, did Adi Shankara, before he wrote the Shankara Bhashya, know about the Shankara Bhashya? He said, no. He said, as long as you are sincere, it is good enough. Don't worry about it. So Vasishtha continued. Now all this we are talking, all this you are saying, I am saying, you are listening, according to the Yoga Vasishtha, is a cosmic illusion. So Vasishtha continued, this cosmic illusion, Maya, creates great delusion and is of the nature of disequilibrium. It's extremely difficult to understand it. What comparison is there between a hallucination which lasts for a brief duration of 1 hour's dream and a whole lifetime as a tribesman with all the varied experience. We read about that, right? Yesterday, the tribesman was a king, then he became a king. Again, how can we relate what is seen in that hallucination and what is seen in front of our eyes, or what is truly unreal and what has really undergone a factual transformation? Hence I tell you, O Rama, this cosmic illusion leads the unwary mind into endless difficulties. Rama asked, but oh holy sir, how can one restrain this wheel of cosmic illusion which revolves with such tremendous force? How can we stop it? Vasishtha replied, O Rama, the mind is the hub. I am very thankful to all of you that you are sitting down and listening to something which is so difficult to listen, and even more difficult to understand, and even more difficult to absorb. So I am very thankful that you are sitting here for 2 hours and going through this. But then can't be helped. What can I do? You want Yoga Vasishtha, you get Yoga Vasishtha. So Rama asked, O holy sir, how can one restrain this wheel of cosmic illusion which revolves with such tremendous force? Vasishtha replied, O Rama, the mind is the hub around which this vicious cycle revolves, creating delusions in the minds of the deluded. It's by firmly restraining that hub through intense self-effort and keen intelligence that the whole wheel is brought to a standstill. When the hub's motion is stopped, the wheel does not revolve. When the mind is stilled, illusion ceases. One who does not know this trick and does not practice it undergoes endless sorrow. The moment the truth is seen, behold, the sorrow comes to an end. The disease of the perception of this world illusion is not cured except through the mastery of the mind. which is its only remedy. Hence, O Rama, abandon all other activities. Now I am going to say something, and you would wonder why you came all the way. Hence, O Rama, abandon all other activities like pilgrimage, gifts, austerities, and bring the mind under your control for your ultimate good. This world appearance abides in the mind, even as there is space within the pot. If the pot is broken, the illusory division of space vanishes. And if the mind ceases to be, the concept of a world within the mind also ceases to be. Even as an insect trapped within the pot attains freedom of moment when the pot is broken, you will also enjoy freedom when the mind ceases to be, along with the world illusion contained in it. I also want to say that in the illusion inside the illusion, inside the illusion, inside the illusion, there is one illusory place called Madanapalli. It's also one of those imagination-built places. Why I am saying this, a lot of you have somehow managed to come here and you are enjoying it in this illusion. And while in that Madanapalli illusion, there are some few people who cannot come. Either they can't afford or they can afford, but they are doing things which are necessary for that illusion and so cannot come. So they will all see this video. So I am expressing my thankfulness to them that even though they can't come, they are sitting there and working on that illusion, which is also necessary for moving forward, which is an illusion. I especially want to mention my secretary Lakshmi, who is sitting there on the computer, working, and seeing that people don't trap me by inviting me here, there and so on. And there is a young girl who left Australia and came here. And the poor thing is also sitting, assisting her in the office and watching the videos, not being able to come. So true. And also many of our friends who are not able to come. But it's good that we have the YouTube every day so they can watch what's going on. So I'm very, very thankful to all of them. And I also say they are also on the way to busting the illusion. Vasishtha continued. Live in the present. I forgot to mention, there is a 90+ man who walked all the way during the Padayatra and would have loved to hang around here and make fun of people and so on, who couldn't come because there is a fracture and is sitting in a chair. Anyway, I went to see him in Trivandrum recently. And I said, I'm so sorry you couldn't come. He said, it's all right, you are here also, I don't mind. So Vasishtha continued, live in the present with your consciousness externalized momentarily, but without any effort. When the mind stops linking itself to the past and to the future, then it becomes no mind. Now, is this possible? Well, yes and no. Actually, if you look really, coming out of this illusion of continuity, only thing that exists now is this. What happened yesterday does not exist. It's only in my memory. It's not happening now, right? Is it? It's only in my memory that, yesterday I flew in or yesterday I came. Right now, the only reality is this, now here. But very soon, connecting yesterday, the memory of sitting here yesterday, with what's happening today, we project a future illusion, which is tomorrow also we will sit here, or evening also, nobody knows. Only thing we know, at least for sure, is here, I am. How I am, what I am, that's a different story. In detail, this is the only thing we really know. So therefore, when we understand this deeply, that at any given point then, the mind remains only here. It's not pulling all the memories from the past. It's not thinking of what is going to happen. Already I know we are wondering how to go back. Too much rush. Yeah. But that is a projection, based on your logic, of course, which may be wrong or right. But the only thing we know is now. We don't know anything else. Plus, all the knowledge we have, all the knowledge, including knowledge of the scriptures, knowledge of science, knowledge of each other. Knowledge of each other means, I know who this person is. It's all based on your memory. Let's put it this way. Suppose I come here and somebody gives me this for the first time. I think this is written by some small child, I just now noticed. Always stay with me and my family, he says. I don't know who this little baby is. Please ensure me to live a long and good life. And if possible, please can I get Spider-Man 2 game from bless us all and watch over us. Anyway. Okay. So, in this Spider-Man game, I didn't know about this. I came to know about this when I looked at it. Before that, I didn't know about this card, right? And I have no definitions for it until I saw it. So, when I have understood it, in the present, I say, this is a card given by a small boy. Right. And then it goes into my memory. Right? So next time I see this card, I recall that memory and say, this is the card. But it happens so instantaneously, I am not even aware of the recall. But it is recalled, otherwise it cannot be a memory. Right. Now memory cannot be a thing of the present. You don't have a present memory, you have only a past memory. All memory is in the past. Therefore, all knowledge that we have, which we gather through the mind or through the five senses, is in the memory. When I say I know about it, which means I have become an expert in immediately opening that cubby hole and getting there, this memory. So all that I know is only a series of memories. Right? This is what I call knowledge. It may be highly knowledgeable or less knowledgeable. This is what it is. Memory. And memory is a thing of the past. It cannot be a thing of the present. If it's present, I don't need a memory. Now, if the Supreme Brahman, the all-pervading Supreme Being, it cannot be a memory because it is not a thing of the past. the thing now. Right here. So it cannot be part of any knowledge. Why? Because all knowledge is memory. Memory is of the past. So that supreme reality which is here has to be here at present, not in some old times. If it is, then do you see this? It cannot be any knowledge. It cannot be based on any of my conclusions, any of my experiences. It is fresh, here and now. When one understands this, then one also understands that it is the mind. You may call it the brain for the time being, if you like. It's the mind that creates this illusion of knowledge. I know. Why? Because I have this memory. Therefore, that mind which can only think on these lines cannot think of that which is always present. Because it is built in such a way that can only think connected with the past. It cannot think of the present. So therefore, is there some way to touch that supreme reality when this mind becomes completely obliterated? Otherwise the mind will produce new images. It will say the Supreme Brahman and create an image. Right? So, the only way is for this stupid mind to become still. And it can become still only through self-effort of the mind trying to make the mind still, and the realization that it is only the mind which is trying to make the mind still, when such a thing as the mind does not exist in the Supreme Consciousness. As this penetrates deeper and deeper into our system, then we live in the present. And in the present is the Supreme Being, not locked up in some cubbyhole in the brain. It's here and now, there and here and everywhere. A physical object known by the mind and the five senses can only be here or there. It cannot be here and there at the same time. It cannot be tad dure, tad vadantike, it's far and it's so near. You see, now I remember this sloka from the Upanishad. This is also the mind, memory. I am not saying that you should give up your memories or your intelligence, but use the memory and the intelligence to understand that in the ultimate analysis, none of this is required. There is only the rested mind and the blessed self. If you look at it quickly, it's simple. But then no, that old mind will come into the picture and complicate it. Make a mess of it and go off, and here we are. Anyway. Life in the present, Vasishtha. With your consciousness externalized momentarily, but without any effort, when the mind stops linking itself to the past and to the future, is what I was trying to explain before I read. It becomes no mind. If from moment to moment your mind dwells on what is and drops it effortlessly at once. Now I am wondering if this is Vasishtha saying or J. Krishnamurti talking. But he said recently, now this is 1,000 years old. If from moment to moment your mind dwells on what is, just understand that if historically it is true, then Rama understood this whole thing. And his future life was all based on that. If from moment to moment I'm sorry repeating because it needs repetition. You're right? Right? You're no more overwhelmed anymore, right? You're okay. Yeah. There was a time when you were. Memory. See how it creates mischief. So if from moment to moment your mind dwells on what is and drops it effortlessly at once, the mind becomes no mind, full of purity. It is only as long as the mind continues to be agitated that it experiences the diversity of its own projection. Even as rain falls only as long as there are clouds. And it is only as long as the infinite consciousness limits itself into the finite mind that such agitation and expansion can take place. If consciousness ceases to be the infinite, if the consciousness ceases to be the finite mind, and then know that the very roots of cyclic world illusion, birth and death, are burnt, that is perfection. You might be thinking that before coming here, I go through each of the chapters to be done and do my homework. I don't. Because I don't want to carry the image of what I studied and come here. When I come here, I open the page, I see what is there and I read it to you. So I am free. So are you. Just understand this. In fact, yesterday night before going to sleep, I was reading Asterix. Anyway. Consciousness, Vasishtha continues. I'm not saying you should all read Asterix, but by Balanos, you shouldn't. Consciousness free from the limitations of the mind, consciousness freed from the limitations of the mind is known as the inner intelligence. It is the essential nature of no mind. And therefore it is not tainted by the impurities of concepts and percepts. That is the reality. That is the supreme auspiciousness. That is the state known as the Supreme Self. That is omniscience. And that vision is not had when the mind with its wicked intentions functions. Where there is mind, there flourishes hope and desire. And there arises the experience of pain and pleasure. The consciousness which has been awakened to the truth does not fall into concepts and percepts. Therefore, even though it seems to undergo various psychological experiences, it does not give rise to the world illusion and the cycle of world appearance. In the case of those who have been awakened through the study of scriptures, company of holy men, and unceasing and vigilant practice of truth, their consciousness has reached the pure state of non-objectiveness. Why is this mentioned here? Because somewhere else Vasishtha mentioned that in some people it just happened suddenly. Now he is saying that there are others, in generally the majority, who have been awakened through the study of scriptures, company of holy men, and unceasing and vigilant practice of truth. Their consciousness has reached the pure state of non-objectiveness. So first learn to be truthful in day-to-day life. You cannot be not truthful in day-to-day life and expect to reach the absolute truth. How is this possible? It's a contradiction in itself. Unless, as I said, you're a lawyer or a politician. That's not our intention, right? Anyway. Hence, O Rama, while yet remaining active in this world, talking, taking, leaving, etc., be without the mind and realize that you are pure consciousness. Abandon notions such as this is mine, this is he, this I am, and be established in the consciousness of undivided oneness. As long as the body lasts, consider the present and the future with equanimity. Be forever established in the consciousness of the self in all states, youth, manhood, old age, pleasure and pain, waking, dream and sleep states. Abandon the impurity of objective perception, hopes and desires. Remain established in self-knowledge. Give up notions of auspicious and inauspicious happenings. Give up the visions of the desirable and undesirable. Know that you are the essence of consciousness. About this auspicious and inauspicious is something we need to really look at. Many people are caught in this illusion. Many years ago we had a talk in Bangalore on the Upanishads. Right, now you know the Upanishads have nothing to do with all these things. At the end of it, I said, anybody has a question? Then somebody told me, stood up and said, when I go out in the morning for work, in my car, if a cat crosses the road, should I go or I should not go? I said, you lose your job. Here, what was the subject? Upanishad. What was the question? If a cat crosses the road, it is inauspicious, so I am not supposed to go. Then I also told him that I have a pet cat which I keep with me. And every time I go out, I make it cross the road, and then until today nothing inauspicious has happened to me. So we need to look at this. We have many folklores and legends which have become part of our consciousness. If you want to travel in India, go on a Tuesday. Nobody will travel. And therefore I always travel on a Tuesday. Till now no mishap has happened to me. These are all superstitions which we need to get rid of. Just an example, there are many more. It's all right if the people do it, but please don't think it is spiritual. That's all I'm saying. The other problem is, whatever you do because you fancy it, you label it as this is a religious practice. We have to free ourselves from all this. The self alone is the sole aid for the realization of the Supreme Self or the infinite consciousness. It's one's own self that strives to abandon one's own sorrow. For this, the realization of one's own self by oneself is the only course. There is no other course. Nobody is going to spoon-feed moksha into you. Hence, O Rama, while remaining active in this world, talking, taking, living, be without the mind and realize that you are pure consciousness. Be freed from conditions known as duality and non-duality and remain in a state of equilibrium, which is a state of pure consciousness and freedom. Cut off all the fetters of desire and hope solely with the intelligence that is unlimited and endowed with patience and perseverance, and go beyond dharma and adharma. To one who thus drinks the nectar of immortality in the shape of self-knowledge, the delights of sense pleasures becomes painful. We resort to the company of only those who have attained self-knowledge. Don't go with the others. They are donkeys in human garb. Vasishtha. If I would say these things publicly, I'll probably be stoned away from the flag. When Vasishtha says, nobody can say anything. Even as elephants move with long strides, the sages who have reached the higher state of consciousness rise to the highest levels. They have no external help at all, and no sun illumines their path. Self-knowledge alone is their light. In fact, the sun and the worlds become non-objects of perception to them. The sage of self-knowledge, the knower of truth, is supreme amongst those who are radiant, glorious, strong, great, and endowed with other characteristics which are considered marks of excellence. These sages shine in the world like the sun, the fire, and the moon, and the stars all put together. On the other hand, they who have not attained self-knowledge are worse than, please, again Vasishtha, not me, worse than worms and insects. The ghost of delusion afflicts. Look, I can't say all this because when I see you all, I see only the self. So how can you say the self is a worm? I can't. I don't see you otherwise. I see you as the Parabrahman itself. You may not think so, but I think so. I see so. So I can't say worm, donkey and I can, because worms and donkeys also are the Parabrahman. The only thing is you may know it or you may not know it, but the fact remains from our side that you are. Vasishtha continued, "O Rama, this mind is like a tree which is firmly rooted in the vicious field known as the body. Worries and anxieties are its blossoms. It is laden with the fruits of old age and disease, and adorned with flowers of desires and sense enjoyments. Hopes and longings are its branches, and perversity are its leaves. Cut down this deadly poisonous tree, which looks as unshakable as the mountain, with the sharp axe known as inquiry. Even as a terrible weapon is encountered and destroyed by a more powerful weapon, tranquilize the mind with the help of the mind itself. Forever abandon every form of mental agitation. Remain at peace within yourself, like a tree freed from the disturbance caused by monkeys." You don't have to go to Ongol for that. "O Rama, do not take your stand on concepts and percepts of the mind. I am going to narrate to you, O Rama, how the great sage Uddhalaka attained the supreme vision of the truth. If you read the Upanishads, you will encounter Uddhalaka in a couple of places, many places. I am going to tell you how the sage Uddhalaka attained the supreme vision of truth. In the corner of the earth, there is a great mountain known as Gandhamadana. On one of its peaks, there is a great tree. In that region, there lived the sage Uddhalaka. Even while he was a young boy, he aspired to attain the supreme wisdom through his own effort. Of course, then he was of little understanding. He had a restless mind, though he had a pure heart. He engaged himself in austerities, in the study of the scriptures and so on, and wisdom arose in him. While sitting alone one day, sage Uddhalaka reflected thus. As of now, he hasn't had a teacher also. He is thinking for himself. He is thinking, sitting alone one day, after doing a lot of tapasya. What is liberation? What is said to be the foremost among the objects to be attained, upon attaining which one does not experience sorrow and is not born again? When shall I rest permanently in that state? When will the mental agitations caused by desires and cravings cease? When will I be freed from thoughts like this I have done and this I should do? When will my mind cease to undergo perversities, though living in relationship here, even as the lotus lying on the water is not tainted by the water? When will I, with the help of the boat of supreme wisdom, cross to the other shore of liberation? When will I be able to look upon the diverse activities of people with the playfulness of a child? When will the mind attain utter quietness? When will the illusory division between the subjective and objective experiences cease through the experience of the infinite consciousness? When will I be able to behold this concept known as the mind without being involved in it? When will I, living in a cave with the mind in utter tranquility, remain like a rock in a state in which there is no movement of thought at all? So thought Uddhalaka sitting there in the cave. This reflecting thus, Uddhalaka continued his practice of meditation, but his mind continued to be agitated. Some days, however, his mind abandoned external objects and remained in a state of purity. Some days. At other times, it was greatly disturbed, greatly distressed by such changing moods. He roamed the forest. So you see, this happens to all sincere people who want to find the truth. You try. But one day the mind is calm by itself. One day it's agitated. And you want the agitated mind to become calm as you experienced yesterday. But the funny thing is the calm mind that you experienced yesterday is not there today. It was yesterday. You are trying to bring the image of the calmness of yesterday into today and thereby causing disturbance. And this is a little bit. Some people come to me, some time back I had a beautiful experience in my meditation. Ultimate experience is when there is no experience, it doesn't matter. I had a beautiful experience But it happened only on that day. I'm trying hard, but I'm not getting it. So I usually tell them, listen, by trying to get back what you had in the past, you are successfully stopping what is supposed to happen today. Instead of, because it was pleasant and nice, so I want to capture it and bring it back to. So what is happening that I am successfully blocking the wonderful thing that might have happened today, but I want yesterday's image. This is called moving away from the past into the present. Or somebody told me that when I meditate, this is the experience that I will get. I'm stuck on it. Today when I meditate, if I don't get that experience, I'm agitated. When the mind becomes calm, every day is a new experience. I'm not saying the shape or the kind of, but every day is new. You're not stuck with the old. This happens also in sadhana. Because today in this world, it's like a supermarket. So people do window shopping from youth. You pick up this thing, that pick up, and then they come also here. There's one more shop also opened here. Sringeri has there. Then they listen. But their minds are clouded by what they took there, from there. And therefore it prevents from things happening which should be happening because you're stuck to that image, don't want to give up, you feel guilty. Most of it is fear. What will happen if I give it up? That guy might break my head or something like that. So it doesn't matter how many places, what you pick up, when you sit down to meditate, be free of all. Even be free of them. Be yourself, your inner self. You will not find the truth by saying, oh, M is great, Matu Karnata Namano. Self-effort is required. Maybe people have taught you that if you sing praises of the Guru, you will get there. You will not. It's your effort, your being, your understanding. Thus reflecting. Sorry, I have to sometimes leave the text and come out and go back again. Thus reflecting, Uddhalaka continued his practice of meditation. But his mind continued to be agitated. Some days his mind, that's why I changed from there, abandoned external objects and remained in purity. Other times it was greatly disturbed. Greatly distressed by such changing moods, he roamed the forest. One day, it's nice to have a beautiful forest to roam. One day, he reached a lovely spot, a lonely spot in the forest, which had not been visited by anybody else. There he sat in a nice little cave, which appeared to be most conducive to the attainment of the state of utter tranquility and peace. It was delightful in every way, with beautiful creepers and flowers around it, with a moderate climate, and it shone as if it had been carved out of an emerald. Uddhalaka, Vasishtha continued. Uddhalaka entered that delightful cave and sat in a meditative posture. Intent on attaining the state of mind without the least moment of thought. He concentrated his attention on the latent tendencies in the mind. Uddhalaka reflected within himself, "O mind, what have you to do with this world appearance? Wise men do not come into contact with what is called pleasure, which turns into pain later on. He who abandons the supreme peace that lies within and goes in search of sense pleasures, abandons a delightful garden and goes into a bush of poison herbs. You may go where you like. You will never taste the supreme peace except through perfect quietness of mind. Hence, abandon all hopes and desires. For all these seemingly wondrous objects of the nature, either of being or non-being, are not meant for your happiness. They will only contribute to your unhappiness. Do not perish like the deer which is trapped by the sound of music and bells, or the male elephant which is trapped with the help of the female elephant. Have you seen how wild elephants are caught and brought by the forest department? Have you seen? No, first they send a female elephant. Very soon this elephant follows. And then the fellow who was roaming like a king in the forest is now in chains, standing there, moving. So, do not be like the male elephant which is trapped with the help of the, not about human beings, about elephants, about the female elephant. Not like the fish whose sense of taste leads it to its death on the hook. Nor like the moth which is attracted by the sight of a flame and perishes in it. Nor like the bee whose sense of smell leads it to the flower. Now there are certain kind of flowers, I don't know what they are called. When an insect sits on it, they close. I don't know. Botanists may know. And then they absorb the insect. Like the poor bee, whose sense of smell leads it to that kind of a flower, entrapped in which it is destroyed when the flower falls up at night. Oh foolish mind, hearing all these perish being subject, not hearing, oh foolish mind, all these perish subject to just one sense craving, only one. The deer by the sense of hearing, the bee by the sense of smell, the moth by the sense of sight, the elephant by the sense of touch, and the fish by the sense of taste. But you are a victim to all the five temptations. How can you have happiness? Just as the silkworm spins its cocoon and gets caught in it, you have woven the web of your own concepts and are caught in it. If you can get rid of all that and attain purity, overcome even the fear of death, fear of life and death, and thus attain to equal equanimity, you have achieved the greatest victory. On the other hand, if you cling to this ever-changing phenomenon called the world, you will surely perish in sorrow. Why do I instruct you thus, O mind? For if one investigates the truth, he discovers that there is no such thing called the mind. Buddhists of the Vajrayana have a particular set of teachings. It's called the Mahamudra teachings, where they inquire and try to figure out the mind and find that there is no mind. When there is no mind, there is no problem, it's all over. So, now this is interesting because when some of the teachings which the Buddhists have are very close to the Vedantic teachings. I think Buddha decided to go directly to the Upanishad. And since the secrets were kept hidden and secret with a certain section of people who knew a certain language, he said, let's do everything in the local language, Pali. Times have changed. I think now we should go back and get familiar with Sanskrit. The main reason why we are not able to read first hand all this is because, I'm not saying you should all learn. There are people who know Sanskrit who have not attained nirvana. I'm sorry. It's not like that. But there are people who know nothing. Ramana Maharshi read nothing of the scriptures. And yet later on when somebody sat near him and read the Yoga Vasishtha, for instance, he said, this is exactly what I felt. It's not that, but what I'm trying to say, at one time for a reason, somebody put Sanskrit aside. Now it's time for a reason to get it back. Because then you touch the scriptures originally and nobody can take you for a ride. So anyway, why did I come to this? Yes. So, yeah. So if you go into the Vedantic teachings carefully, especially the teachings of Vedanta and the Advaita Vedanta section, of which Adi Shankara Bhagavad has written so many commentaries. When Shankara went to Banaras and taught Vedanta, the local orthodoxy in Banaras were very worried. Because he said, neither through rituals nor through the Brahmanas can one reach the supreme truth. You can only reach the supreme truth by viveka and vairagya, by discrimination. And the vairagya that comes out of it. What is vairagya? Dispassion, or alright, dispassion. So dispassion comes through viveka, because then you see this is not what we are attached to, is not permanent. So therefore abandon it. When he taught this, and when he taught the concepts of the Supreme Brahman, which the Upanishads declare as yat chakshusha napashati yana chakshumshi pashati tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate, that which even the eye cannot reach, that alone is the Supreme Brahman, nothing that you worship here. Shankara's commentary on the Upanishad is elaborate. Yan manasana manyute yanahurumano matam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate, that which even the mind cannot reach, because there is no mind. That which even the mind cannot reach, because of which the mind gets its life, consciousness. That alone is the Brahman, the Supreme, nothing that you worship here. Nedam yadidam upasate. The local orthodoxies wanted to get rid of him as fast as possible. This is a danger to us. So they called him a Buddhist in disguise, Prachanna Bauddhika. But Shankara was too strong to be kicked out like that, so he maintained this stature. And when Gaudapada, his guru's guru, wrote the first commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, the shortest Upanishad, and his description of the Parabrahman, of the Supreme Truth, was so close to the Shunyavada of the Buddhists that many people suspected that he was a Buddhist. Not true. No, why did I come to that? I don't know why I am going here in this. Why? Huh? What? No mind. I heard somebody saying that I have a great problem, my mind is always disturbing. He said, never mind. So, oh foolish mind, says Uddhalaka, all those perish being subject to just one sense. Oh, we started with the five senses. One sense craving, the deer by the sense of hearing, the bee by the sense of smell, the moth by the sense of sight, the elephant by the sense of touch, and the fish by the sense of taste. But you are a victim to all the five temptations. So how can you have happiness? Just as this, okay. On the other hand, if you cling to this ever-changing phenomenon called the world, you will surely perish in sorrow. Why do I instruct you thus, O mind? Is the mind speaking to the mind. For if one investigates the truth, he discovers that there is no such thing called a mind. It's a temporary collection of experiences. Mind is but a product of ignorance. When ignorance wears out, then the mind wears out too. Hence you are in the process of being worn out. He is telling his own mind. Now you are in the process of being worn out. It is unwise and foolish to instruct one who is in the process of disintegrating. Since day by day you are becoming weaker and weaker, I renounce you. The wise do not teach one who is to be abandoned. O mind, I am the egoless, infinite and homogeneous consciousness. I have nothing to do with you. Who are the cause of the ego? Uddhalaka continued to contemplate thus. The infinite self cannot possibly be squeezed into the mind, which is always limited, any more than an elephant can be squeezed into a bale fruit, to a wood apple. The consciousness that through the process of self-limitation is confined to finitude is known as the mind. This is the result of ignorance, and hence I do not accept this. The ego sense is only a child's ignorant concept, and it is believed in by one who does not investigate the truth. I have carefully investigated. I have absorbed everything from the tips of my toes to the top of my head, and I have not found anything of which I would say, this I am. Who is I? I am the all-pervading consciousness, which is itself not an object of knowledge or knowing. I am that which is indivisible, which has no name, which does not undergo any change, which cannot be expressed through words, as vajana bhyutitam. Hence, O mind, I abandon you, who are the source of sorrow. For so long have I been victimized by ignorance. Luckily I have discovered that which robbed me of self-knowledge. I will never more be the victim of this ignorance. Uddhalaka continued. In reality, consciousness cannot be conditioned. It is unlimited and subtler than the subtlest atom. Hence, beyond the influence of mental conditioning. There is thus nothing which can be called the I. Now you'll see this, that even from childhood till the state we are now, although we think there is one I, not iPhone, I. Although we think there is one I, there have been many I's. The childhood I is different from the teenage I. The teenage I, which of course is the most tumultuous, is different from the other I which then has settled down with a family and so on. The I which comes after that in old age, when the family business is over. And in ancient times, that is the time people went into the forest, vanaprastha. People try nowadays, but there are no forests left. Then the I which is saying, now I abandon everything. So how many I's are there? Although we like to think it's one continuous I, it's all fractured. There are many I's. We like to unite them and put them together. And here is an I, but it's completely an illusory I that we think we are. We have many I's put together. Now, therefore, there is thus nothing which can be called I. And which undergoes, you can stretch your legs, it's all right. No problem. I won't consider it as disrespect. Please don't worry. You can stretch your legs. Because where will you stretch it? Wherever you look, there is the Supreme Brahman. Where will you stretch? They say that Guru Nanak went on a pilgrimage to Makkah. So he was an inveterate traveler. So he went near Makkah somewhere in a small shed and slept, and his feet were towards Makkah. Some people came up and said, "Hey, get up, what are you doing? Your feet are towards the Kaaba, how can you do this?" He said, "Yeah, you are right, I am very sorry." Then he said, "Tell me, your God is everywhere, right? All pervading." He said, "Yes, so where should I stretch my legs? Can you tell me? Wherever I stretch, He is there." So like that, stretch, no harm. So, now this I which undergoes being and non-being, when there is no ego sense actually, but different egos strung together, how can that ego sense be related and to whom? When this is realized, there is no relationship at all. Then the false notion of duality vanishes. But why do I suffer in this delusion? Same thing Uddhalaka is repeating. If I keep repeating, you would all go into Sushupti. So I am picking up only those which are important. If the mind ceases to be, the body ceases to be. 2. On account of the cessation of thought force and mental conditioning. But the mind does not cease to be when the body dies. Hence one should try to get rid of the mind even before death. Mind is like a forest with thought forms for its trees and cravings for its creepers. By destroying these I attain bliss. When the mind is dead, whether the body is dead or not, then it does not matter to me if it exists or it does not exist. Where there is self-knowledge, there is neither mind, nor the senses, nor the tendencies, nor the habits, the concepts and the precepts. I have attained that supreme state and I have emerged victorious. Now after understanding this much, what did sage Uddhalaka do? The next step. Vasishtha says, the sage Uddhalaka then sat down in the lotus posture. That's why I am saying premature kriya systems are also not good. You should first study where you are going, why are you doing. Otherwise you might be doing all kinds of things, but you don't know what for and why. All that you are doing is to destroy the illusion of a separate identity. When you have at least theoretically understood this is called the Samadhi Pada in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And then comes the sadhana Pada. Now he has finished the Samadhi Pada, Uddhalaka. Now he is going to the sadhana section. Now it's like a cakewalk once that is understood, even theoretically. Sage then sat in the lotus posture with his eyes half closed in meditation. He uttered the holy word Om, which bestows the highest state. He intoned the Om in such a way that its vibrations filled his whole being from the bottom to the crown of his head. As the first part of his practice, he exhaled his breath completely. It was as if the life force has abandoned the body and was roaming in space of pure consciousness. Is the life force going up? You want a break? Oh. I thought you wanted a break. So, the sage Uddhalaka, now listen carefully, sat down in the lotus posture with his eyes half closed in meditation. He uttered the holy word Om, which bestows the highest state. He intoned Om in such a way that its vibrations filled his whole being right up to the crown of his head. As the first part of his practice, he exhaled his breath completely. It was as if his life force had abandoned the body and was roaming in the space of pure consciousness. The fire that arose from his heart burnt the whole of his body. All this Uddhalaka practiced without the violence involved in Hatha Yoga. For Hatha Yoga gives rise to pain. So, he practiced the chanting of Om without forcing anything or knocking his bum against the earth. Without Hatha Yoga, for Hatha Yoga gives rise to pain. With the second utterance of the holy Om, he reached the state of equilibrium. And there happened in him a spontaneous retention of the breath without agitation or vibration. It means, after that he again uttered Om. He didn't stop his breath artificially in Kumbh, but he attained the breathless state. There was no in-breathing and there was no out-breathing. It's called the Kevala Kumbh. No holding, no exhaling, no nothing. It's just, there is no breath, it's vanished. The life force stood still, as it were, neither outside nor inside, neither below nor above. After reducing the bodies to ashes, the fire burnt itself out and vanished. Only the pure ashes were visible. It was as if the very bones had turned into camphor which was being burnt in adoration. The ashes were blown by a powerful wind and dispersed in all space. Again Vasishtha repeats, this happened without the violence of Hatha Yoga, for Hatha Yoga gives pain. Second repetition. In the third stage, I hope he doesn't repeat that again and again. Some people may get upset. In the third stage, when the holy word Om reached its culmination or tranquility, there arose the inhalation of breath, drawing in of life force. During this stage, the life forces which were in the very center of the nectar of consciousness spread out in space like cool breeze. These forces reached the region of the moon. There they spread out in space. There they spread out as the auspicious rays which thereupon rained on the ashes that remained of the body. Instantly there arose from the ashes a radiant being with 4 arms like Lord Vishnu. Uddhalaka shone like a divinity. His whole being transmuted into a divinity. The life force filled the inner kundalini, which was spread out like a spiral. Uddhalaka's body had thus been completely purified. Then he, who was already seated in the lotus posture, made his posture firm, tied up his senses, and proceeded to make his consciousness absolutely free from the least movement of thought. With all his strength, he restrained his mind from distraction. His half-closed eyes were still and motionless. With his mind established in inner silence, he equalized the movement of prana and apana. He withdrew his inner senses from contact with their objects, even as oil is separated from the seed. Thereupon he became directly aware of the mental conditioning created by past experiences and unconditioned the awareness and made it pure. Then he firmly closed his eyes, closed his rectum. Now this refers to a yogic practice, not that he put a cork on. Thereupon he withdrew his inner senses from the, Then he firmly closed his rectum and other outlets of the body, eyes, etc. With his life force and awareness thus prevented from externalization by perfect discipline, he held his mind in the heart, which means he shifted his attention to the heart. Somebody is crying? Somebody is missing. This is life. Uddhalaka's mind had attained absolute tranquility and no distraction could afflict it. Directly he beheld in his heart the darkness of ignorance that veiled the light of self-knowledge. With the light of knowledge that rose in him, he dispelled even that darkness. He then beheld the light within. However, When that light dimmed, he experienced sleep. But it dispelled the dullness of sleep too. Once the drowsiness of sleep had been dispelled, his mind threw up diverse brilliant forms. He cleared his consciousness of those visions. He didn't get caught up by that. When that state came, his mind threw up many visions of beautiful flowers, lights. Normally one would say, I have attained. He said, out. Threw them out. Then he was overcome by a great inertia, like one intoxicated. He got over that inertia too. After this, his mind rested in another state which was different from all these so far described. After resting for a while in this state, his mind awoke to the experience of the totality of experience. Immediately after this, he experienced pure awareness. This awareness, which till then had been associated with other factors, had now regained its purity and independence. The consciousness abandoned its objectivity and regained its absolute purity. Uddhalaka was enlightened. He enjoyed the supreme bliss that gods like Brahma enjoyed. His state was beyond description. He was one with the ocean of bliss. Soon, Uddhalaka beheld great sages in that infinite consciousness. He ignored them. He continued with the experience of supreme bliss. He attained the state of liberated while still living. He beheld the gods and the sages, and he even beheld the members of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara. He went beyond even that state. He was completely transmuted into bliss itself. Hence, he had gone beyond the realm of bliss. If I become bliss, then I am out of the realm of bliss. He experienced neither bliss nor non-bliss. When you say bliss, usually associated with pain, non-pain. He was free of the opposites. There was no pain, there is no. He became pure consciousness. This is the supreme state, this is the goal, this is the eternal abode. He who rests in this is not deluded and is no longer caught in the subject-object relationship. He is fully awakened and never again entertains the notion of objectivity or conceptualization. Of course, you cannot even call it an attainment, because in attainment there are two entities, one who attains and attainment. Uddhalaka remained for 6 months in this state, vigilantly avoiding the temptation of, can somebody say? Uddhalaka remained for don't read the book. Uddhalaka remained for 6 months in this state, vigilantly avoiding the temptation of psychic powers, ashtasiddhis, which means even at that stage one may fall into this trap of ashtasiddhis. So they are also quite enjoyable, right? If one can become as small as an atom, suppose, and penetrate into somebody else's mind or body. The thing is, on analysis, why would you want to enter into somebody's mind which is filled with so much filth? But if you want to show that you can, Garima, one of the siddhis, where with will you become so heavy, heavier than an elephant. If somebody does it, this platform will break. So all these present themselves in the end, before you are finally free, before you. That's when they have to be avoided. Unfortunately, people do sadhana to go there. That is the problem. I don't know where I left. He experienced neither bliss nor non-bliss. He became pure consciousness. Uddhalaka remained for 6 months in this state, vigilantly avoiding the temptation of psychic powers. Some people have in their library, private library, many books on how to get psychic power. Even sages and gods adored him. He was invited to ascend to heaven. Why would he go there? He declined the invitation. Totally freed from all desires, Uddhalaka roamed as a sage liberated while living with a Jivana Mukti. Often he would spend days and months in meditation in the caves of the mountains. Other times he engaged himself in ordinary activities of living. He had reached a state of perfect equilibrium. He looked upon all with equal vision. His inner light shone at all times, never rising and never setting. With all notions of duality totally at rest, duality, he lived devoid of body consciousness, established in pure being. In answer to Rama's question concerning pure being, Vasishtha said, when the mind has ceased to be because of the total absence of the notions of material existence, consciousness exists in his own nature as pure consciousness. That is pure being. When consciousness devoid of notions of objectivity merges in itself, losing its separate identity, it's called pure being. When all external and internal notions merge in consciousness, there is only pure consciousness. This is the supreme vision that happens to all liberated ones, whether they seem to have a body or they are without one. Having reached the state of consciousness, Uddhalaka lived for some time. In course of time, in his mind arose the wish, let me drop this embodiment. Now that, what will I do with this body? It's useless to me. So he went to a mountain cave and seated himself in lotus posture with his eyes half closed. He closed off the 9 apertures of the body. He withdrew the senses into his heart. He restrained his life force, prana. He held his body in a state of perfect equilibrium. He pressed the tip of his tongue against the root of his palate. His jaws were slightly parted from each other. This is what I said yesterday, khechri. He did the khechri and shut off all the working of all the organs of the body. After some time the soul quits because there is nothing doing here. He held his body in a state of perfect, His inner vision was directed neither inward nor outward, neither above nor below, neither in substantiality nor void. He was established in pure consciousness and he experienced pure bliss within himself. Uddhalaka remained in this totally pure state for some time, like a painted picture. Gradually, day by day, he attained perfect quiescence. He remained in his own pure state. He had risen above the cycle of birth and death. All his doubts were set at rest. Perverse thoughts had ceased. All impurities of the heart had been washed away. He had attained that state of bliss which is beyond description, in which one regards even the joy of the King of Heavens as worthless. His body remained thus for a period of 6 months. After that, one day, several goddesses, meaning ethereal beings, led by none other than Parvati herself, arrived at that spot in response to the prayers of a devotee. Parvati was worshipped by the gods themselves, saw the body of Uddhalaka, which had been dried by the scorching rays of the sun, and quickly placed it on the crown of her head. By then the body of Uddhalaka had become a mere shadow. She took it and kept it on her head like a crown. Such is the glorious story of the sage Uddhalaka or Rama, which awakens the highest wisdom in the heart of one who takes shelter in his shade. Vasishtha continued, O Rama, living like this, constantly inquiring into the nature of the self, attain peace. This state of consciousness can be attained by the cultivation of dispassion, study of scriptures, instructions of a guru, and by the persistent practice of inquiry. But if the awakened intelligence is keen and sharp, you will attain it even without the other aids. Which means you don't always need them. Hey, this is not possible. Better. Ouch. It looks like the Kundalini is moving through woods. No. But if the awakened intelligence is keen and sharp, you will attain it even without the other aids, the awakening of intelligence. Rama asked, Holy Sir, some there are who rest in self-knowledge, who are enlightened, and yet engage themselves in activities. There are others who isolate themselves and practice contemplation, are in samadhi. Of these, who is better? Not really a good question, but Vasishtha, chalo, theek hai. After all, Rama is asking. His favorite. Vasishtha replied, O Rama, that is samadhi, contemplation or meditation, in which one realizes the objects of the senses as not the self, and therefore enjoys inner calmness and tranquility at all times. Having realized that the objects are related only to the mind and therefore constantly resting in inner peace, always, Some are engaged in activity while others live in isolation. Both of them enjoy the bliss of contemplation. If the mind of one who appears to be in samadhi is distracted, if the mind of one who appears to be in samadhi, is distracted, he is a madman. On the other hand, if the mind of one who appears to be a madman is free from all notions, he is an enlightened person and he is an unbroken samadhi. Which means, Vasishtha is telling Rama, it is impossible for the mind which has reached that state to be distracted. If in that case you see somebody who is from a trance, seems to be distracted, then he has not reached the highest state, he is a mad guy. This is what he is saying. On the other hand, you might see a completely mad looking fellow, but he may be free from all notions and distractions. He is a person who is enlightened and he is in unbroken samadhi. The problem is how to distinguish this. And not knowing how to distinguish, sometimes people end up worshipping all kinds of mad people. This is the problem. Somebody sitting in a railway station like Shunya, he might have come out of the asylum, but then people start worshipping him. It is such verses from the ancient scriptures that have caused this. But it is true that there may be people who look to you as mad and who think that you are mad, who even in the activities they do, running, sitting, talking, laughing, still continuously absorbed in the inner bliss. Whether he is engaged in activity or he lives in isolation in a forest, in enlightenment there is no distinction. The mind which is free from conditioning is not tainted even while it is engaged in activity. The non-action of the mind is known as samadhi or samadhana. It is total freedom, it is blessedness. The difference between contemplation and its absence is indicated by whether or not there is movement of thought in the mind. Hence, make the mind unconditioned. Now, the problem is, when I say I want to make my mind unconditioned, immediately problem starts, because there are two people here. One is seeing the mind and saying I have to make it, and the mind is... When the mind subsides, then there is tranquility. Anyway, I discussed a little bit yesterday about this. No? I did. Again, I'll discuss at some point. The conditioned mind is the source of sorrow. The unconditioned mind is a non-actor and attains to the supreme state of enlightenment. Hence, one should work to remove all mental conditioning. That is known as contemplation or samadhi, in which all desires and hopes concerning the world have ceased, which is free from sorrow, fear and desire, and by which the self rests in itself. Now the ancient texts have prescribed a couple of practices for this. Balancing breath, of course, is done in Kriya. There may be other forms of Kriya also. But the one practice which is very interesting, actually there are two, is to sit quietly, allow the thoughts to be. Because when you sit quietly, it is not that your thoughts are going to go away. Allow them to be. And manufacture a mind sword or a scissors or a nice Chinese made grass cutter. And every time a thought arises, cut. Now, then what will happen? Immediately another one will come up. But that another one may not be linked to this one. We are trying to cut the chain. Otherwise what happens? One thought and the next one is linked like a chain. We need to break this chain somewhere. So I sit down and I chant Om nicely, let's say. Few times. Then you see less thoughts are there, easy to handle. And then when the thought appears, get out, cut. Immediately another thought will come, cut. Don't even wait to see are they linked. Where did they, all these, no, cut. Don't even ask where did it come from. Cut. Then another one will come, cut. Keep cutting every thought that comes, and it will come, they will happen. Keep cutting. Suddenly at some point, you may see there is nothing. Yeah, you will see one thing, that I am seeing and there is nothing, that's all. The other is, let me explain. We think that this world, which is built of our mind mostly, let's forget about that, let's say thought. We think that thought is a continuous chain. Even the thought of I being who I am and you being who you are, it's a chain that has developed from birth onwards or even before birth. And it's going on, this chain, link. Now the fact is, actually the thoughts are not linked like a chain. They are all independent. Let me explain. They are all independent. And the link is one created by the mind. Let me explain. In the olden days, when films used to be shot with a 16 mm or 8 mm or whatever, with films. It was not digital those days, films. Now, when you watch the film, you see somebody lifting his hand up. Right? Now, when you shoot actually, in each frame, the hand is like this, next frame it's like this, next frame it is like this, next frame it is like this, next frame. If you look at the film, when you run it in the projector at a particular speed, you see it as one continuous motion. In the same way, all our thoughts are linked. How? Again, let me explain. Just like the film. Also, one thought appears, it goes off. Another thought appears, it goes off. Third thought appears, goes off. So, one is coming in the present and disappearing into the past. Another one immediately takes on. It may be linked, but the thought is goes into the past. So that looks like thoughts are coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. There is no continuity. Although, because of the projector called the mind, we see it as a continuous chain. Now, if we accept that it is not so, that it are small thoughts that are coming and joining together as a chain, So between each of these thoughts, before one goes and the other comes, there must be an infinitesimal little gap, which we don't see, but the mind is not accustomed to that. There is a gap, there has to be a gap. One is gone and the other is coming. There is a small, it's so small and so fine that we are not able to grasp. One of the meditation techniques taught in some places, in some Himalayan schools, is that one I told you, which is cut, cut, cut. The other is to watch the thought as it comes, being aware of the fact that one thought comes and goes and is followed by another, keeping this in mind as you carefully watch and say, can I find the gap? The gap between one coming and going and before another one has arrived. It's not easy, but the mind keeps quiet and is settled down. One day, watching for the gap, you might catch the gap. Then your job is done. You don't come for yoga, Vasishtha, nothing. It's over. Because you have touched the source from which these bubbles come and go. You have touched the ocean. Then you can come just to see me if you like. You don't have to do anything. You caught the gap. And that gap is when somebody has caught it, they discover that it is purely like emptiness, but conscious and blissful. The mind, in its very subtle state, enjoys that bliss. But at some point even that disappears. There is only bliss. Who is enjoying, who is not enjoying, we don't know. There is only enjoyment without the enjoyer. You'll know only if you touch the gap. And it's possible also that in some cases, when you're doing nothing, you're just sitting down somewhere and watching the waterfall or something. Suddenly it can happen, before the water from the waterfall touches the ground, between coming and touching you might see the gap. So, I know some concepts are a little subtle. We need to look at. Vasishtha says to Rama, mentally renounce all false identification of the self, being this or that, who and so on, with the objects here and there, and live where you like, either at home or in a mountain cave. To the householder, whose mind has attained utter quietness, his house is the forest. If the mind is at peace and if there is no ego sense, even the cities are void. On the other hand, forests are like cities. To him whose heart is full of desires, the distractions of the mind subside in deep sleep. Enlightenment attains enlightenment. Then do as you please. You cannot do a wrong action. Vasishtha continued, O Rama, the infinite consciousness becomes aware of the pungency of the chili. This gives rise to the ego sense. With all its differentiation in time and space, the infinite consciousness becomes aware of the savour and the salt, and that gives rise to the ego sense with all the differentiation which seems to exist in time and space. It is trying to say that when you say, I enjoy salt, or I enjoy the wonderful Banaras chili pickle, or when I say I enjoy the rasgullas, you are not enjoying it. The enjoyment is in the Supreme Being. If this is understood, then you have touched the source of enjoyment, then you can enjoy the rasgulla without eating it. I don't know if you can do this. Or similar, something like that. In these matters you can only say something like that. Yeah. Swami Chinmayananda told a story once. Where is that thing gone? Keeps going off. This is called Maya. It comes, goes. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, Swami Chinmayananda once told a story. I don't know if you know this, but when he gave me myself. Anyway, I'll keep it upside down to confuse me. So, I don't know if you know it, but he went to Rishikesh when he was a journalist working for the Times of India, a young journalist. His original name was Bhaskar Menon, and in Ernakulam, where he studied in the college, he was a notorious guy, quite notorious. Maharaja's College. And then he went to the Himalayas as a journalist to Rishikesh to expose the sadhus. Yeah, he went as a reporter to expose the sadhus. He was a very brilliant, sharp man. And then he went to Shivananda ashram where everybody is welcome. Now it is little difficult, but those days it was very easy. So he went and stayed there, and he started visiting the sadhus, talking to them, trying to expose them and so on. And then slowly he got absorbed in the system. He learnt yoga in the Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy. Swami Shivananda became his favorite. Slowly he forgot about his expose, and he wrote back to the Times that he is not coming back. Well, luckily he was unmarried. And then he stayed there some time. After a while, in one of those days, on Purnima, among many others, Swami Shivananda gave him sannyas and gave him the name of Chinmayananda. So he started wearing ochre robes and became a Swami. His mind was restless. He was looking for something other than just doing yoga asanas and pranayama. He wanted to study more about Vedanta, which means the Upanishads, Yoga Vasishtha, ultimately yes, but before that the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and so on in their philosophical and Vedantic aspect. So he told Swami Shivananda, I have to do this. He said, here it is not available, because here people usually come to do yoga and so on. If you want, I'm just giving you a background. If you want, go to Uttarakanchi. In Uttarakanchi, there is a great Swami whose name is Tapovanam. Tapovan Swami lives in Uttarakanchi, in the little kutir called Tapovan Kutir, which overlooks the Ganga as it flows. In Uttarakanchi also, like in Banaras, the Ganga flows in the reverse direction. So he went to him. He also went saying that Swami Shivananda. So he went to Tapovan Maharaj. Swami Shivananda also said there is a plus point because he is from Kerala. His name is Malayalam Swami, they call him. So you can talk in your language, that's also there. He went there. When he started talking, Tapovan Maharaj quickly understood that he is from Kerala. So he started talking in Malayalam. So first question he asked, "Oh, you have become a sannyasi?" He said, "Yes." "Who gave you sannyas?" Tapovan Maharaj in his life gave sannyas only to one person in his life, not Chinmayananda. Swami Shivananda. Oh, he laughed. Their sannyasa is wholesale, he said, and laughed. This Swamiji told me. He said, "Okay, now that you have taken the karob, you have become a sannyasin. So what do you want?" He said, "I want to study Vedanta." He said, "We'll see, stay with me for some time." So he stayed with him for 8 years. Not a joke that he became Swami Chinmayananda, so please. He stayed 8 years with Tapovan Maharaj. I must say that he is very much responsible for bringing Vedanta and the Gita to the English educated public in those days. Very much responsible. Other things, let's not. So, he said that one day, Tapovan Maharaj was teaching him the Kena Upanishad. So the Kena Upanishad says that it is beyond the eye and the, beyond the eye, beyond the ear, beyond even the mind is the supreme truth. And then when the next sloka where you will expect an explanation, it says, Chakshusha, Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Mana Yat Vacho Gavajam Saho Pranasya Prana, which means it is the ear of the ear and the eye of the eye and the mind of the mind and so on. The Swamiji said, "Swami, please, can you please tell me what it is? What is this business? This is the eye of the eye means what? I don't understand. What is it? You are saying it is not this, but what is it?" He kept quiet. After some time he said, "Hey, go and bring some water from the river." So he took a kamandalu and brought some water innocently and said, "Swamiji, Maharaj, here is the water." He got very angry. "Who asked you to bring the kamandalu?" He said. "Swamiji, you just told me to bring the water." "Yeah, but I asked you for water. Who asked for the kamandalu?" He said, "But without the kamandalu I cannot bring the water." He said, "This is what. Without an upadhi, you cannot explain the Brahman. Which is why they said eye of the eye and so on. If you say, really you want to know the Brahman without any connection and comparison, go bring me water without a kamandal." Not possible. So therefore, sometimes these examples are given because there is no other way to describe something like that. So I had a very good, I was much younger than him, I was quite old. He also had a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.